been some unexpected visitors in the congregation this morning, and we are here because we have a gift for you. Please don't open it yet. All of this began about 3 years ago in the very active mind of Anthony Cross. Anthony pointed out to me on a conversation that this weekend you'd be celebrating a significant birthday, and this would be just the occasion to make a rather special gift to you. Now, Anthony, as you know, is very seriously unwell at present, and he just cannot physically join us this morning. But it's a matter of fact that everything that follows has begun in his mind and in his thoughtfulness. He suggested to me that we should seek to find out if there was the possibility of producing a Festschrift in your honor. So we set about testing the idea with some significant people and were immediately overwhelmed by the positive response. People thought this a great idea, a great project, eager to contribute, and we have the results today. Many of those extra congregation members are contributors. So may I introduce them and the gift that they make for you. And thank you, members of Grove Lane, for bearing with this. I hope you might have some pleasure in it also. The first of 4 essays begins, of course, with the Bible and the question of its interpretation, and it begins with Sean Winter. He had hoped to be in this list, seeing you this morning, but he's staying up a bit late for those purposes.
I think he is here.
Is
he here, Brian?
Great. Oh, marvellous.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Sean, all the way from Australia. Sean has, after a quotation from Caspar Shankfeld, paid close attention to 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6. He works away at the issues of letter and spirit and interpretation of ways of reading that make alive. It's a great beginning. And then there's an essay from Simon Perry, once a co-minister with you at Bloomsbury. Simon notes your listening skills, but then moves into one of those careful reflections on the Bible that we've come to expect from him. Listen up, Israel, he begins. And his essay is entitled The Trauma of Hearing, Listening, Poetry, and the Parable of the Sower. He recalls your listening and the resulting pastoral care and intercession. Ernest Lucas. Now, Ernest is here. He was a colleague teaching with us at the Bristol College. And Ernest has written an essay asking if the book of Proverbs is a misogynist text. A popular superficial reading would so condemn it, but this, of course, is earnest reading, with all the linguistic and textual skills that he brings to the task. So unexpected insights are brought to light. And none of us, I predict, after reading this essay, will ever come to the book of Proverbs in quite the same way ever again. Then, glory be to God, we're in St Andrews, your first university. And we're there with Cheadle Hulme. You and Stephen have worked together on important Baptist studies over the years. Here, his essay is entitled Women and Ministry Once More. He asserts in the essay that the argument in Scripture as to whether God calls women to ministry is settled. Of course he does. God has that freedom. Stephen's question now is, how come such Bible-reading people could get it so wrong for so long? And he explores the way in history that people have attempted to use the Bible, neglectful of its context and their own, and so they have misheard it and misused it. Stephen gives us a fine piece of theological and historical reasoning with contemporary implications. So we move into a section of the book devoted now to historical studies. And Karen Smith, now Karen, I've seen she's here this morning with us. She writes for us on British Baptist women and suffrage under the title Cooperation, Not Separation. Ruth, you and I were once present when the late Alan Kreider suggested that British Baptists were all the weaker because of our neglect of our history, the rich hidden history of some remarkable Christian disciples that we just don't take the trouble to learn about.
He got quite cross with us.
He would have rejoiced at Karen's great essay and for all the light this scholarly work brings for us. One of the people that Karen mentions becomes the focus of the study by Janice O'Brien, a member of the Bloomsbury congregation, a professional researcher. She comes and brings light on Emily Georgiana Kemp, and with great new research sets out the life of this remarkable woman, missionary, scholar, writer, of whom it was said the central interest was living Christianity. This is another inspiring story, so well told. Linda Wilson shares with you the Anabaptist Theological Forum. In her contribution, she asks, was writing about prayer in the Baptist magazine, 1850 to 1870, gendered? Well, Anthony and I were at first quietly amazed that someone had actually worked so thoroughly through those dark, forbidding, dense printed volumes that reside in the dust of research libraries. But Linda has done it, and as a result, brings us again surprising insights into women at prayer, shedding new light for us. From IBTS, now in Amsterdam, a seminary to which you have made such important contributions, comes an essay from Toivo Pili. Do you know the name of Ilse Catville? No, neither do we. She was an Estonian female preacher and pastor. She lived from 1906 to 1987. Now imagine what it must have been, living through the wars, living through this work in Estonia with the call of God on her life. Toivo tells of this remarkable, charismatic, ecumenical, saintly minister of Christ. It's another enriching and inspiring story. Again from IBTS, and now also from the Scottish Baptist College, Lena Toth writes historically about issues of gender that have concerned you and all of us, Ruth. She explores what it means to be a follower of Jesus as a single woman. She does this by going back into the early centuries of the church and focusing in particular on the Begin option. These studies open up all manner of questions about today's church, its language, its imagery, its expectations. Fine pastoral theology is being written here. And then Michael Peet is here, like yourself, once a student minister assistant at Bloomsbury. Michael has become arguably our most significant British Baptist moral theologian. He too is concerned with gender issues and writes on what Americans call the hot button issue. Significantly, the whole title of his essay is More Light, Truth and Transitions, ? Gender dysphoria as a moral case study for the further light cause. Isn't that wonderful? As the Lord more light and truth to break forth from out of his word. This is an exceptional study in moral theology. Then comes 3 essays on ministry. The first from Anthony Cross, with whom you have been collaborating on many projects and particularly busy in recent years in preparing the new history of the Bristol Academy. Anthony has engaged in extensive rereading of the source material, at present amounting to 3 publishable volumes. He has read many of the old printed ordination sermons and reflections on the life of ministry, the understanding of ministry. In it all, he has noticed a theme that is not very common in our contemporary British success-driven management approaches to ministry. He focuses on the costliness of ministry, of being a pastor, of spending and being spent. He notes how often that phrase is repeated from the first right the way through the story. Spending and being spent, a sharing in ministry in the sufferings of Christ. I also contribute an essay on ministry under the title of Pastoral Prayer, an essential feature of the pastor in relating to people. 3 notable 20th century preachers surprised me in the discovery of the care with which they took leading others in prayer. 2 of them didn't bother to write out their sermons at all, but all 3 of them took hours writing the pastoral prayer, the difference between speaking to the people and speaking with God. Simon Woodman, Simon is here, a former student and partner of yours in ministry at Bloomsbury. Well, Simon explores for us the visit Martin Luther King made to Bloomsbury and preached at the morning service. He analyzes the sermon that was preached in other places, but always with reflections that are local, and he draws out the great themes of justice and righteousness. Simon then goes on to ask what it means to be a prophetic church today, and gives examples from the Bloomsbury story and the present day, examples of prophetic boldness and the consequences of offending with such a challenging ministry. 2 more essays complete the list. You've always had a lively interest in literature, the theatre and the arts, with a theology, therefore, of God's engagement with the whole world, the whole of life. Paul Fides has recently completed a big book on Shakespeare, but for you, he has written an essay on Shakespeare and spirituality, exploring those more things in heaven and on earth than we dream of. Paul has duties at New Road Baptist Church this morning, leading the worship there. Otherwise, he would certainly be with us. But he sends us his greetings and congratulations, and especially his best wishes to you. Now, in recent years, Richard Kidd has increasingly put us all in his debt by helping us to see, by teaching us to look. He offers you an essay that plays, first of all, with the imagery of the palette, colour making, before moving on to examine those artists who are collectively known as the Scottish colourists, Cadell, Peploe, Hunter, Ferguson. They worked on Iona and the islands, concerned with the changing colours, light and shade. And Richard finds in their work intimations of transcendence, of God in all things. And I confidently predict that anyone who reads this essay will be making a mental note that the next time they must be in Edinburgh, for whatever reason, they're going to make time to visit the galleries. So these are the friends who have written for you. But that is not all there is to this book. 2 more contributions come of a very special kind, so much so that Anthony and I have set them right at the very beginning. When we first set about thinking of the project, we knew that one of the first people from whom we needed to seek advice and help and wisdom was Professor Peter Erb, your first supervisor for doctoral studies. We wrote to him. He replied with great enthusiasm, encouragement and joy, but also with the news that such was his health, he could not contemplate contributing the kind of work that was required. We replied in sorrow, but with the suggestion that perhaps later, if health and strength allowed, he might write you a letter, which we could include. Well, thanks be to God, Peter's health has grown stronger, and he has written you a letter. To be honest, I think that Anthony and I expected a rather short note of greeting and congratulation, that sort of thing. A bit of a postcard, really. What you have, Ruth, is a striking 4-page letter from your supervisor, outlining issues in Schenkfeld's studies, engaging with your own work, and indicating what waits to be followed up. So much more than ever we editors expected. I'm not sure whether Professor Erb has been able to attend this morning. I'm looking to Simon. Is Peter with us? He hoped so much he would be able.
No, he's here.
No.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's here.
There. Oh,
He's wonderful.
Right.
That's, well, we greet you getting up so early in Ontario. It's wonderful to see you. So, one problem that editors have with such books is always how to introduce the subject. Such works are not biographies and usually assume the basic necessary facts are known. The task is to engage with the work that's been done and enhance and develop it. Well, Anthony and I suddenly realized we were in a rather unusual position. We had heard of learned children contributing essays to volumes honoring their learned parents, but not of learned parents writing in honor of their children. Here was a possibility of something properly unique. So we wrote, seeking the help of Dr. Derek Murray. He has given us a father's appreciation, a lovely, affectionate piece that we have placed right at the start of the book. Derek tells of your life in such a way that light is shown and thrown on various contexts, your family, your educational, academic, intellectual, ecclesial, and other contexts of your life in such a way that it illumines all of your work and the why some of the essays that we contribute have come out in the way that they've done. It is a wonderful introduction to the whole. So, Ruth, if there is one word which gathers up the essence of this project and its presentation to you this morning, it is gratitude. It is a response to who you are, but what you have written and what you have done. It is a gift offered to you in deep, deep gratitude. So now, at long last, please open the package where we hope you will find the very first copy of Remembering the Body, the witness of history, theology, and the arts, in honor of Ruth Mary Gouldbourne.
I ought to have said, while Ruth